see Sheldon, the number 3 seed. He'll get to be on the play. Brad playing the breakout Jeskai deck on the draw. Sheldon is the one player, though, who has beaten this deck already. He played Ross Miriam in the top 8 and won 2-0 against Ross, piloting the Jeskai tokens.
Yeah, Ross no slouch himself. I mean, that's a very impressive win for Sheldon.
Yeah, can he pull it off one more time? We will see. He starts on basic Forest. Shivan Reef off Brad. Sheldon has the first play in Sylvan Caryatid.
And if Sheldon is on the play with Caryatid, then Other End is definitely fast enough to interact with Ascendancy.
Yeah, and this is one of the draws that can be really fearful for any Jeskai deck. A turn 3 Siege Rhino from Sheldon Freerksen. And is it fair to say that this is the key card for Sheldon? 5 toughness just is so hard.
It's so big, it tramples, so Brad's tokens are not well set up to chump block it. And it's just a lot of pressure to put on Brad initially. You know, the token deck spends a little bit of time kind of fumbling around on the earlier turns. It's not necessarily coming out of the gates that fast. And if Sheldon's able to curve out on the play with Siege Rhinos, Brad might die before he gets much set up.
Brad's going to Magma Jet to put to Scry 2 here, puts Sheldon to 21. But yeah, there's not any good removal spells from Brad, at least not pre-board, for a card like Siege Rhino.
And his removal spells are not well set up to get it. Stoke the Flames doesn't touch it. The smaller burn spells don't. Not really a threat you want to be targeting with Jeskai Charm.
And here comes in Siege Rhino. He's going to deal 4 more damage. Brad took a pain to cast that Magma Jet and had a tapped land on turn 3. He's already down to 11.
And a second Siege Rhino here, I think Brad might just be out of this game before he even gets started.
Yeah, we'll see here. Another, and this is the kind of play, it's another Siege Rhino from Freerksen. I've said this before, this is the scary part about the Obzon decks, is a turn 3 Rhino, turn 4 Rhino is almost unbeatable by a lot of decks in the format.
Brad's just tapping the mat. We got hung up a lot on the ability to kill Jeskai Ascendancy, and we sort of neglected the fact that Sheldon can also just kill Brad instead, and that's how game 1 plays out.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Siege Rhino is still a great card in Standard.
That was under 2 minutes. That game 1 was under 2 minutes.
Well, on the draw, Brad does not have any interaction against a turn 3 Rhino, turn 4 Rhino start. He's just not going to beat it.
Yep, and there you have it. Sheldon quickly up a game in the finals.
All right, well, as they move to sideboard, and we'll get to that in a second, we're going to set up our final giveaway of the morning. This is for a year's worth of Star City Games Premium. If you're just joining us, the rules are you need to be on Twitter and tweet the correct answer with the hashtag SCG Premium on them. Then at the conclusion of this match, we will pick one of the correct answers to get a year's worth of Star City Premium. Question I'm going to ask here, this is with Brad's Jeskai Tokens deck. We're looking for another name of a card. This is a 1-of in his deck. It is a reprint. It's a Theros reprint of a older card from all the way back in Mirrodin block.
Yep.
So
5th Dawn.
5th Dawn, exactly, yeah. So if you believe you know the 5th Dawn reprint that's in Brad's main deck, please tweet that answer. Make sure you have the hashtag SCG Premium on them. At the end of the finals, we'll give away the prize.
So now as we move to the sideboard, we saw the big thing that Brad has to fight, or at least one dimension of the deck, which is a very fast Siege Rhino. To that end, he does have some answers in his sideboard to clean that up a little bit. He has 4 sideboarded copies of Disdainful Stroke, very good against Siege Rhino, on top of a bunch of other cards in Sheldon's deck, Other Ends, Sweepers, and so forth. I think you're definitely going to see those 4 cards come in. I think the 2 copies of Glare of Heresy will likely come in as well.
Yeah, so you see these Disdainful Strokes and these 2 Glares, and that is exactly what Brad wants to be doing in this matchup. Siege Rhino is the most problematic card in Sheldon's deck. He does not want to be caught dead to it again. I think he'll board all 6 of them.
I think so too. On Sheldon's side, I think you're going to see the 2 copies of End Hostilities, some of the anti-enchantment cards come in and unravel the Aether. I think this is a Bioblight and Ulcerate matchup. I think when Sheldon, Ulcerate's a little dodgy against a deck with a heavy burn element, but on the draw, Sheldon's deck has so many comes into play tap lands, and Ulcerate is an efficient answer to Goblin Rabblemaster and Secret of the Way. So even though it's a bit sketchy against a deck playing Jeskai Charm and Stoke the Flames and a bunch of other burn spells, I think it's so efficient mana-wise that Sheldon's going to want to bring it in.
Well, what Sheldon has going for him here is he has good board cards. We talked about ways to combat a token strategy. Now that there's no Ratchet Bomb style card in the format, well, it's black cards. Bioblight and Drown in Sorrow are both very good against tokens, and Sheldon has a lot of them in his sideboard.
So again, he's got that recipe, the ability to interact with Jeskai Ascendancy, and a good fundamental game plan against a token deck with blocking and 4 copies of Drown in Sorrow. Definitely good for Brad to have disdainful strokes, because if he can fight the big stuff, he may be able to just win the game on the back of his tokens and ascendancy. But Sheldon, again, bringing a lot of heat to the table. We've been saying this a lot. The 75 cards here give him a lot of options in a bunch of different matchups.
All right, well, we are underway. Game 2. This one, Brad is on the plays. He will start on a pair of temples. Passes back the turn. He has a later game in his hand. You see Goblin Rabblemaster, Jeskai Charm, and Treasure Cruise all set up there. He's going to start on a Rabblemaster. Because he's on the play, he gets to play this. He drew a copy of Disdainful Stroke. On the draw, he'd have to worry about being Siege Rhino'd here, but on the play, there's no such worry.
And this is why I think this exact draw from Brad is why I like the idea of bringing in the Ulcerate on Sheldon's side, because if you get that Rabblemaster on that sequence, I think Sheldon's in a great position.
Sheldon spends his turn using Hero's Downfall on the Rabblemaster, so it does cost him his turn, but he gets it off the table. Brad will play a 4th land here and swing for 1. Sheldon does have a copy of Siege Rhino in his hand. Brad is at the ready to disdainfully stroke it, though. Sheldon starting on Courser of Krufix, finding a temple. Rather than running a Rhino into a counterspell, he's just going to start that slow grinding engine again.
And this is something you'll see these Abzan players or players of all stripes who are informed due post-board against these blue decks try to play a bunch of 3-mana spells in spots where the opponent has mana open.
Yeah, and Brad really paying respect to that sort of Courser card advantage engine. He's going to stoke the flames on the end step to take down the Courser of Krufix.
You're pretty far away from burning out Sheldon, so might as well get the Courser off the table. Frees up the Goblin and prevents Sheldon from drawing a bunch of lands.
One thing that I was talking to Brad about this, what he likes about the Jeskai deck is he said against these mid-range decks, more often than not, he actually just takes a control route. He's the player with Jeskai Ascendancies and Treasure Cruises and 4 Disdainful Strokes. He feels like he can be a control deck in this matchup.
And you can see that in place here. Sheldon, you know, the Courser wasn't able to survive. He had to spend this turn casting Read the Bones because he doesn't want to deploy one of his 4s right now. And it's not clear that Sheldon has an edge in the late game because Brad has counters to keep him off the big stuff and Treasure Cruise to refuel.
That said, if Brad's going to go a pure control route, Sheldon's better positioned than most. He does have Read the Bones and Abzan Charms. Maybe he doesn't still have the Abzan Charms in, but he does have more card advantage than most Abzan decks. So he draws 2 there. We are over to Brad. Just a land, no threat.
And Sheldon with yet another 3-mana spell. And I wonder at what point is he going to say, I need to start casting some of the stuff into Disdainful Strokes.
Well, he is going to play a land there. You see another 2-for-1. It's Read the Bones on top of his deck. And once again, I am impressed with Sheldon's build. It did well against the Abzan midrange, the Abzan Reanimator deck, rather. And it can take down the other big deck of the tournament. This ability to play a grinding game has just been really good for him.
Very flexible. And that seems like the way that you should try to direct your Abzan mid-range build because there's so many different cards available to you. It doesn't feel like there ever should be a hole in the armor, you know? You should be able to have good tools for all the matchups.
Well, what I see both the Abzan Reanimator and this build of Abzan midrange doing is they're losing points in their aggro matchup to really, you know, cards like Read the Bones. If I'm playing a Foundry Street Denizen deck, you really don't want to see that. But if you're not worried about these low-end aggro decks, yeah, drawing more cards sounds really good right now.
And you do have 4 copies of Drown in Sorrow on the board to clean up that matchup.
Raise the alarm on the end step for Brad. 3 creatures in play. They still can't swing just yet.
And Drown in Sorrow is so problematic for Brad because none of his counters catch it. If he had some number of negates, then maybe it would be different, but...
Brad will put the shields down. This is the opening Sheldon needs for his Siege Rhino, but Brad will Treasure Cruise. Drawing 3 may be worth enough to let his opponent have a Rhino.
Well, I think the problem here is it's not just going to be a Rhino, it's going to be Drown in Sorrow and a Rhino.
That could be really strong. We'll see what Sheldon has. He does have that play available to him. You might be exactly right. By getting ahead on cards in hand, Brad's giving Sheldon a great opportunity to get ahead on the board. See Sheldon swinging first. Doesn't want to play the Drown in Sorrow first because then his creature will be a 0-2.
And he knows that Brad's just not going to block there. Yes, there's some risk of Brad running a double block there, and then you can't drown Sorrow, but it's basically like Brad's drowning Sorrow himself at that point, so it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. And here you have it. It's Siege Rhino, puts Brad down to 15, Sheldon up to 22, has 3 mana up, will be the follow-up Drown in Sorrow. Keeping Brad off the board seems strong. And that is the play he'll make. Brad's going to lose all his tokens. We'll see if Sheldon wants to keep an Obzon Charm. That's the card on top. And he'll say no. He'll get something different. A forest here. He'll get it for free with Courser of Freerksen. And Elspeth Sun's Champion going to be his next draw as Sheldon moves into a strong lead on the board.
And, you know, Brad can try to buy a little bit, you know, he can do something like play Jeskai Ascendancy here, but then he loses access to his Disdainful Stroke because he's only got 1 blue mana right now. I don't know if he has a land drop to make, but this is the problem with playing the control route. Sheldon did such a good job of punishing Brad on the turns where he held up Disdainful Stroke by deploying impactful 3-mana spells. Brad had to catch up in 1 turn and tap out, and that's when you see the Siege Rhino get deployed.
Well, Sheldon, it's just that, an excellent job of playing around counter spells. When Brad leaves up counter magic, Sheldon plays 3 drops. And then when Brad takes down counter magic, Sheldon punishes him in some of the strongest ways possible.
Yes.
Brad didn't just let, you know, when Brad took down counter magic, not only did Sheldon get to resolve a huge threat, but Sheldon got to take down Brad's entire board at the same time. And here's another 3-mana spell. It's Hero's Downfall for the Seeker of the Way.
And you see Brad, he has a Stoke of Flame in hand, so he has an opportunity to cast this on the Courser, but then he shields down again. And you know that there's an Elspeth now in Sheldon's hand, so does he have mana number 6 to put into play?
And maybe Brad just can't take that risk. It's such a difficult spot when you're playing with counter spells. When you're behind on the board, counter spells don't do much for you. Brad can't take the risk that Sheldon has the land. He'll use Stoke the Flames. He'll get rid of Courser of Freerksen. And now, if Sheldon has that untapped land, Elspeth will make an appearance. It looks like he does not. Siege Rhino swings for 4. Brad's down to 11. And he does not have the 6th land. He has a Read the Bones.
Yeah, Read the Bones plus another Caryatid is not a bad consolation prize. Sheldon's approaching the point where he's going to be able to overwhelm Disdainful Stroke by chaining together multiple 4+ mana spells in the same turn, because he's going to have so many cards and so much mana.
You see Sheldon here playing a second Caryatid, and rather than using Read the Bones, leaves up mana for an Obzon Charm in his hand. His remaining hand is Read the Bones, Obzon Charm, and Elspeth.
Though this does, Brad with Glare of Heresy in hand. So
Yeah.
we can glare the Siege Rhino.
This is an opportunity where Brad has a window to clean up the board.
And he can hold up the Disdainful Stroke, and as long as Sheldon doesn't find any impactful cards that cost less than the 4 mana for Disdainful Stroke, he's kind of in the clear.
Jeskai Ascendancy the play for Brad. Well, Brad can only Disdainful Stroke one thing, so even if Sheldon if he gets just 2 large threats, you know, as you said, he's getting to the point where that will be good enough. Brad at a low total of 10 here.
But getting the Ascendancy in play is a victory. It's a starting point.
Sheldon will start with Read the Bones. Drown in Sorrow, Sylvan Caryatid, those are the Scry. I'm sure he doesn't want the Caryatid, not even sure if he wants the Drown.
It's hard to play Drown in Sorrow against the Ascendancy. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it does nothing.
He'll take the Drown, however. He gets that, plus it looks like another Sylvan Caryatid. So not the best Read the Bones. But he's got Brad under pressure. Brad's down to 6.
But Brad is not that far from cleaning up the board. Like we said, he has the Glare that he can do next turn to the Siege Rhino. He's got Disdainful Stroke that covers the Elspeth in hand.
Yep. Tempo of Silence will put a card to the bottom. Sheldon will start to plow through that counter magic, however. First Elspeth into Disdainful Stroke. But the damage has been done. Jeskai Ascendancy is on the board, and now Brad's going to start looting every time he casts one of these counter spells.
I mean, this is definitely a starting point. Brad is starting to turn this around a little bit.
I mean, to be honest, I like Brad right now in this game. He's got the Glare of Heresy. He's got another Disdainful Stroke. I don't see Sheldon resolving something meaningful anymore.
Well, the issue that I have right now is that if Sheldon finds an answer to the Ascendancy, then Brad's got very little going on, and the Drown in Sorrow that Sheldon's kept here is likely to cause him some huge problems.
But there's a window. Brad's going to discard Seeker of the Way after his loot. He'll get to untap now. with Raise the Alarm as the draw. Brad's hand very strong. Jeskai Charm, Raise the Alarm. Glare of Heresy, that'll take care of the Siege Rhino. Brad will loot. Draws Battlefield Forge, she'll discard that one.
But when someone gets an unchecked Ascendancy, you feel like it's only a matter of time before they find a Treasure Cruise, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, Treasure, it's not just Ascendancy that's the really strength of the deck. It's the interaction that we've seen between Treasure Cruise and Ascendancy that lets this deck play a control game.
Yeah.
Abzan Charm will draw 2 cards for Sheldon. He draws Bioblight and Thoughtseize. These are all cards that would be good if Sheldon still had a Siege Rhino, but right now they're just treading water. Eventually the Ascendancy will overpower all of it. And Thoughtseize is the play from Sheldon Freerksen. We see Disdainful Stroke, Raise the Alarm, Stoke the Flames, Jeskai Charm.
And I think part of the reason that Brad does not want to cast anything in response is that the prize in all of this is Treasure Cruise. That's what he's building to eventually. And he doesn't want to cast anything in response, find a Treasure Cruise off the loot, and then have that get Thoughtseized away. So I think he's happy losing any random card out of his hand to give himself maximum flexibility with his Ascendancy triggers.
And I like the choice here from Sheldon. He took the Disdainful Stroke, knows that if he can land something like a Siege Rhino, he may just be in the clear. Brad's got to be worried. Does Sheldon have something like that? He does not. It's just Sylvan Caryatid. And with 6 mana in play, all Sheldon cast was Sylvan Caryatid into what he knew was a clear board. This is a sign of weakness. I think Brad's going to jump on it.
Well, he could have a hand with creature removal in it. That's the other possibility.
Yeah, but I mean, it means he doesn't. Right now, I think the threats are what Brad's got to be worried about.
For sure. Brad's at 6. He can die before he finds Treasure Cruise or anything significant.
Goblin Rabblemaster, the play from Brad. He makes a token, swings into a Sylvan Caryatid. Is this going to be enough to get the Drown in Sorrow? The worry here is that Brad will stoke the flames in response if he tries for it.
Yeah, it's these minus effects. Once someone has an Ascendancy in play, they are no guarantee.
Well, on end step, Sheldon will draw 2 from Abzan Charm. He draws into Siege Rhino. That will get him half the way through Brad's life total. He's got to be worried, though, if Brad, remember, has a copy of Jeskai Charm. If Brad can 1-1 and lifelink with that, this game becomes very difficult for Sheldon. That's a lot of life gain.
And now Sheldon looking at that Drown Sorrow, and like I said, once the Ascendancy's online, that card's no promise of anything. Could easily just end up being 3 mana Scry 1.
Siege Rhino's the play for Sheldon. Brad is at 6. It's going to work. Sheldon up to 15, Brad down to 3. Brad unable to play another Siege Rhino. Brad can play up to 2 instants this turn if he needs to. He has Raise the Alarm and Stoke the Flames. He could do both as long as he plays the Raise the Alarm first. Would be enough to play around any one of the 2 removal spells from Sheldon, but not both. And he's going to go with Bioblade on Rabblemaster. Strong play here, I think. We'll see if Brad wants to play both spells to save it. Looks like he does. But that means, and this is well crafted by Sheldon, he's going to get a decent prize off this. Not the best. He'll get the Rabblemaster and both soldiers dead.
Yeah, Brad will get to keep a Goblin, I believe, because the Goblin will become a 3/3.
Right, so now he's going to cast Stoke the Flames. Brad's trying, he needs to set up a board where he has tokens and can lifelink them. So with this, the Rabblemaster goes up to a 4/4. Bioblade will resolve. Rabblemaster will become a 3/3, or a 1/1 rather. So right now Brad has a 3/3 Goblin, a 1/1 Rabblemaster, and 2 2/2 soldiers. So everything but the Goblin token is going to die to the Drown in Sorrow.
But now that Siege Rhino may be the death knell.
Brad was really trying to set up a board where he could have a army of tokens and then cast Jeskai Charm. And it turns out, if on that turn Brad lets his Goblin die and just casts Raise the Alarm, is he in a better spot? Then he can Jeskai Charm with 3 creatures. It's not great, but he might have something.
Yeah, well, he doesn't know about Sheldon's Drown in Sorrow. That was a hidden draw. So
it's not saying it's a bad play on Brad's part. I'm saying, you know, there was a chance. I think he plays it right, and Sheldon just has the card.
Yeah, I think the way it shook out, it would have been better the other way, but Brad's not working with that kind of information. So now Brad needs to do this and hope to find Disdainful Stroke.
Cast Jeskai Charm at Sheldon, and that's going to be the game there. Sheldon Freerksen is your winner over Brad Nelson at 2-0. He is your Star City Portland Standard Open champion.
And for all the conversation that we've had about, you know, how good this Jeskai token deck is, how good these various Reanimator decks, whether it be Sultai, whether it be Abzan, Sheldon with the Abzan mid-range, able to take it down. A lot of broad strokes answers, a little bit more card drawing in this list. No aggressive elements, you know, not messing around with any Fleece Mane Lions or anything like that.